Right, now that we've learned a few of the specifiers, let's see how we can work with the width field. And we'll work with the width field in terms of integers in these examples. So we'll see then, when we saw this string before, we've got percent, we've got the specifier. That's what we've been working with. We saw the %d said to interpret integer information in a base 10 or a decimal format, so %d decimal. And then we have these optional fields that we can put in here. And so one of these fields is the width field, and it will always be the minimum width. So it's going to specify the minimum number of characters to print. When our data needs more space, all characters are printed. Right? If we don't specify the width, it uses just enough room to print the data. Right? That's what we've been doing, using just enough room. We'll see sometimes, though, if we want to line things up in columns, right, if we want to format things very neatly, the width specifier will be very handy, right? And it will just be a number, the minimum number of characters to be printed, right? Right, let's just go ahead and see an example of printing this out, right? If we were to run this program, we would see then, so the \n is the escape sequence in this example that gives us this blank line here. We would see then that the number 12 just uses then these two character fields to represent 1, 2. There's a space here in the string, so we have this space, right? %d then, this value of 345 is substituted into this argument, so we see the 345. The space then here in this control string, format string, is printed here, and then 6789 is substituted in here for this %d, right? So it uses just the width that it needs to display this information. Let's just go ahead and pop that up in code blocks and see that run. So here's the same string. Actually, I've just introduced 2 blank lines up above. Right? If we build and run, so we can see the output. Once again, right, we see 1, 2, space, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? So it uses just the minimum width. Similarly, if I were to leave any space in between here, we would just see this as one run-on number. Right, let's build and run. Right. So from our output, we have no way of knowing that we really are displaying 3 different integers by not leaving the spacing in there. Right? It just looks like one number. You can see it uses the minimum number of space required. If we put these back in, if we put these back in, right, we get this information. All right, now let's take a look at what happens if we start specifying a width. Right. We're now going to put a %3 in here. When we put the %3 in for each one of these, then we'll see then that it will use 3 spaces here for the 12. So everything is going to be right justified, meaning we'll have a blank space in front of the 10. Whenever the width is wider than the number will be right justified in a space of 3, so we'll always have, what that means, we'll have blank spaces before the number. This next blank space here will come from this string. We'll see that 345 then uses the required width of 3. This next blank space comes from the blank space here. And then we'll see that even though we say %3 for the field width here, 6789 the entire integer will be printed out. It doesn't truncate anything, which is what we want. We don't want to lose information. Right. All right, so let's go back to code blocks and let's put the %3d, %3d, %3d here, build and run. And we have this leading space in front of the 12. Right, we have the space in between. Due to this space, 345 takes up 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. The whole thing prints out. It's not truncated because we limited the width. So this is the minimum number. Remember, by default, prints out all of them. Similarly, if I don't leave spaces in between, I'm not going to lose information, but it's not going to look very pretty. Right, I can see I've got the space between the 1, 2, the 3, 4, 5 took up all 3, the 6, 7, 8, 9, right, it used 4 for that. let's maybe make these a little bit bigger. Let's make them all 8. I'm not going to leave the spaces in the control string so that we can maybe see the extra spaces in the output. All right. So now, for this first expression, 12, what it did is there are 6 leading blank spaces here. Then it prints out the 1, 2. For 345, it only requires 3, so there's 5 leading blank spaces here. For 6, 7, 8, 9, and a field width of 8, it only required 4, so there's 4 leading blank spaces in front of that. Right, so you can start using, like I said, the width to control your output, control how nice it looks on the screen for the user, right? Especially when you need to line things up in columns, right? Let's go to an example where we can line up data. So I'm going to copy paste this over to code block so that we have multiple integers in our output here. Right. So if we're using 6 for all of this, actually let me get rid of that new line character there since we have that in the beginning. Actually, let me just get rid of these spaces in between so that we know that none of the spaces are coming from the format string. And now let's build and run. All right, so we have these examples of varying width because we said we use the same width, 6 in all of these. Then you can see that it right justified, so they line up. Right justified means that they line up on the right. And it uses field width for all of them. The widest numbers were 4. Right? If the field width was too small, it would have used the entire field. But you can see when you start getting multiple numbers, if you want to line everything up, especially integers on the right, when you have line after line to form columns, you can neatly format your output in that way. So all we did was the number that we put in between here for the %d specified the width of our field. They don't all have to be the same, right? If I want things to line up, it's nice to use the same, but right, I could make this a 10 here. And I'm keeping it a 10 all the way across so that the things line up. Let me stop this one from running. And let me build and run again. All right. So this other field, this last one, had a field width of 10. So you can experiment with different field widths, right? Try different things with this to see what results you get. But this is a nice way to control your output.